Welcome back to my channel. First of all, please like the video, please share it, and also please subscribe. I wanted to make something short on 9/11, and I'm hoping to get in and out in about 15 minutes or less, and I'm actually timing myself here. And this video is going to be unique in that I'm not looking at my computer monitor for my notes. I actually have some notes on my phone that I wrote to myself on the metro riding home. The computer is actually updating and rebooting right now. But I wanted to make a quick video on 9/11. It's a historic day in our country's history, and it was a game changer for most of us. So that's what this video is going to be about. So it's going to be a bit of a ramble and a bit of just some loose thoughts and some recollections and some just some memories of that time and that fateful day and that era. I'm going to first say I was thinking about what to say about 9/11 when I was at work today, and as you can see, I'm wearing my Michigan Pharmacology t-shirt, and I decided to put this on because when 9/11 happened, I was actually at the University of Michigan in graduate school. Interestingly, the University of Michigan was not my first choice. I actually wanted to go to NYU. One of my, actually he's one of my best friends now as well, but he was from my brother's graduating class at our high school. They were 2 years ahead of me. This particular friend went to NYU, and it sounded like it would be the cool thing to do, to go to graduate school in New York City. Our friend certainly had a good time in Manhattan, and I was in the South at the time at Johnson C. Smith University, and I decided I wanted to be in a major metropolis, and I thought that going to NYU would be great. And I thought that I would get in, and the one thing that kept me out of New York University's Department of Pharmacology, I think, was my GRE scores. I didn't score very highly on the GRE, and I think that was a smaller school than the Big Ten schools, so I didn't get into NYU. So I'm saying this to say that in the aftermath of 9/11, of the terrorist attacks, of the falling of the two towers, the World Trade Center, I realized that if I were at NYU in graduate school, I would have been in the city probably when the two towers went down, and who knows, I may have been at the World Trade Center that morning myself. So in that regard, after 9/11, I felt kind of blessed that I didn't get accepted by NYU. So it's funny how life works out in that way. You know, certain things happen and you're not in this particular location when certain tragedies happen, and I really wanted to go to NYU at that time, but I'm happy with where I'm happy with going to the University of Michigan, not just because I was in New York City when the attacks happened, but I'm happy to be a Michigan alumnus. At that time, on 9/11, I was recovering from knee surgery. So I tore my patella tendon actually playing touch football, of all things. In the fall, some of the faculty in my department and some of the students would go out to a nearby field and play touch football. And I remember the ground being hard that day, and I wasn't conditioned to run routes, and I went out to catch a pass, and I tore my patella tendon. So that was in early August, and I had had the surgery when 9/11 happened, and I started physical therapy, and I was going to the lab to do my research. And that was, I'm looking down at my phone, at my notes, and that was a point at which I was at a bit of a crossroads because I did not understand how to do research. And I wrote a blog post about that, and I'm gonna at some point record a video on that. But I didn't understand why I was in graduate school, and I didn't understand what it took to earn a PhD. And my graduate advisor, one day he gave me a ride home, and he gave me quite a talking to one day about how I wasn't getting it done and how I wasn't doing what I needed to do to earn my degree. And it was a real gut check, so that was a point where I had to figure out whether or not I was going to dig in and figure out what I needed to do, or whether or not I was just going to pack it in and say, you know what, I can't do this, and I'm going to do something else with my life. So all that was going on during 9/11. And so I remember hearing about the first plane hitting when I got to lab. I was using a paratransit service who would come to my apartment and pick me up because my left leg was in a knee immobilizer, so I couldn't walk around, and I was using crutches. And when I got to lab, we heard that a plane had hit, and then after a little while longer, we heard that another plane had hit, and then we heard that smoke was coming from the World Trade Center, both towers, and then a little while later, we heard that one of the buildings collapsed, then another building collapsed, and then later on we heard that one plane went down in central Pennsylvania, and then another plane hit the Pentagon. And so I didn't see any of it on TV while it was going down, but I heard about it on the radio. That attack, let's see, so for Gen Xers, I was born in the mid-70s. I won't give you the exact year, but so I experienced the end of the Cold War. I experienced the first Persian Gulf War, but I hadn't really experienced a tragedy like that, or nothing like that had really happened in my lifetime up to that point. So that was a real shocker, and it really changed a lot of things. There used to be a time when you could go to the airport and you could go to the gate with your relatives and you could watch them get on the jet bridge and then get on the plane and fly off. And 9/11 changed all that. Now you have to go through security checkpoints, and you have to take your shoes off, and you have to take all of your electronics out, and you can't carry liquids and things like that through security. And so it really changed things. It affected our freedoms here in the United States. And for a little while there was a concern about racial profiling against individuals from the Middle East. And that was, a big thing. That was a big thing because as black African Americans in this country, there was driving while black. There was stop and frisk, and so now it was our Middle Easterners going to be profiled when they get on airplanes and stuff like that. Which in one of my previous videos, I talked about how I listened to the Bruce Williams show every night when I was in graduate school, and Bruce actually said something I agreed with, which was, well, if you know a certain ethnic group is more likely to do something, why not? Why not watch them? Why not keep an eye on them? That made sense to me, even though some people might think that it's wrong. So that really changed the way a lot of us thought about things and the way that a lot of us saw the world. And it might have given rise to what we're seeing right now in terms of being weary about letting certain people into the country, and people being weary of people who come from certain regions of the world. That might have been the genesis of all this. Let's see. It That event brought out certain fissures and cracks in the country. While there was a push for patriotism following 9/11, it really brought to the surface some of the racial bitterness that was still present in the country. And okay, I'm going to pull my father back into this, but I think this is worth mentioning. And it's not to demonize anyone, but it's just to say, what had happened, and how people were feeling at that time, and how people were still feeling at that time. And so Chris Rock, I think, up until that point, made a joke that said, "I'm not afraid of Al Qaeda, I'm afraid of Al Kraka." So I didn't see that comedy routine, but I remember, talking to my father and saying, "Dad, air travel's not safe. All these things are going on. We can get blown up." And my dad, when he would find lines that he liked, he'd keep reciting them over and over and over again. And he said to me, "Well," he said, "I'm not worried about them." He said, "Chris Rock had a joke. I'm not afraid of Al Qaeda. I'm afraid of Al Kraka." So, in other words, we need to be more afraid of white Americans than we need to be afraid of Middle Eastern terrorists. I didn't particularly agree with that, but there are some people that felt that way. And there were some people of color who actually celebrated the fact that white Americans were afraid and scared and in a state of terror now. And I didn't agree with that either, because there were people, well, those are fellow Americans, number one, and also there were people that died in the World Trade Center and on those airplanes who were of color. So I didn't think that that was a good thing, because someone like me could have gotten killed, in the World Trade Center, and I just didn't think that that was right. And I'm going to close by saying that, my dad, again, he's a baby boomer, so he grew up in the civil rights era, and I'm sure that he's experienced a lot of racism in his years. And those feelings, his feelings, and those who found joy in the terror of others, other fellow countrymen, those are real feelings. Those are there. Those are, we deal with this every day. We deal with this throughout the year. Now it's your turn. Those are real feelings. So I'm not discarding those. But I'm going to close this by saying that for all the issues this country has, and this is not a perfect country, excuse me. We have it good here in comparison to other parts of the world. And there's a reason that people are coming here, and there's a reason that people want to come here, and there's lots of opportunity here, and there are lots of chances here to succeed, and there are second chances here to salvage your life and salvage your careers and those kinds of things if you decide to do so. And it's relatively safe here. and we've had certain liberties here, and those kinds of things. So I'm just saying that to say that while this country has its issues, it could be a lot worse, and a lot of these freedoms we enjoy are maintained by our military servicemen and our law enforcement and our municipal workers, like those who ran into the World Trade Center to get those people out that fateful day. And I just want to thank those people. I want to thank our military servicemen and our law enforcement and our municipal workers and our first responders. And I want to thank you for affording us the life that we have, the freedoms that we have. And I just want to thank them, and just want to, just give my own remembrance for those who were lost that day, and those soldiers who lost their lives in the Second Persian Gulf War. I remember I was living with my father at that time, and I remember coming home after being at the lab all day, and he was at school all day teaching, and PBS would show pictures of all of the soldiers who died in Iraq, and they would flash the pictures one by one, and me and my father would sit there and just watch, and it was kind of it was a very solemn moment watching that every night. So please like the video, please share it, please subscribe. If you have a 9/11 story you want to tell, please feel free to leave it in the description box below. Thank you for watching this video. I will talk to you later, and I will see you the next time. And always remember that your attitude determines your altitude. Take care. Bye-bye.